I'm going to go through how to replace the elements on a KitchenAid double oven. Here's what it looks like before. To get things off, you have to take off the each door, which there are other YouTube videos that show that. I'm not going to deal with that. And then you unscrew just, I think it's 4 screws, and then the whole thing can slide out. For reference, this is what the element looks like. Here it is taken out of the opening. I put it on a small table since there wasn't that much electrical cable. And since this is a pretty rickety table, I reinforced it underneath with a milk crate just in case it would break one of the legs. The designers of this unit did a very, very poor job in that they built the top and the bottom units separately. Then they connected them, and the bottom unit blocks the removal of the element. So you actually have to disconnect the top from the bottom, and I will show that. And you can go through these little connection removals and things to bend down at a later viewing. So what you have to do is you have to remove the screws along the top left side. I'm not sure if all of them have to be removed. I can't remember right now, probably. You'll see it, which ones that make sense to have to remove. Then you remove the 2 tab screws on each side. And what we did is I had like a 1.5 inch block that I put in between to lift it up, as you can see, about just enough so that we can get the element out. I guess we could have taken the whole unit off, but I think that would have been a lot more effort. So in order to lift that 1 inch, we have to deal with the electronics on the upper left side in this picture, which are blocking that top unit to actually go up. You need to remove this little black divider piece. I think we have to remove it. We might not have to, but it was easy to come off with 4 screws. So to allow the electronics to move up, you have to take off the 4 screws, 2 on each side. Then that would be able to pop out, and you can see the back of the electronics. And when I went to remove those connectors to make it easy, they were not easy for me to get off. So I didn't want to break things, since every time I work on my GM cars, all the tabs I try to get off break. So I didn't want to break these, because if I broke these, I think it's the end of the world relative to using this device. So I just had my wife hold up the unit while we swapped out the element. Wasn't that heavy, wasn't too much of a problem. So once we had these, the top lifted up, I don't have a good picture of that. We were in the middle of doing it, so I didn't take a picture. We were able to bend down, take out those 4 screws at the top that you see right here. Then you bend it down. Then I used a scissors to cut the insulation. So the insulation actually is wrapped around the element, so you actually can't get the element out without cutting into the insulation. They didn't make a way for you to do that. So I used scissors. That was easier than a knife or a blade. I used scissors to cut an opening. Then that gives you access to the 4 screws that hold the element in place. I think it's 4, maybe 6 actually, 6 screws to hold the element in place. Then we destroyed it pulling it out, because it was very difficult to get out, but it was broken anyway, so didn't worry about that. And then when we put it back in, we first vacuumed inside, because there's some loose stuff that was around there with a long-necked vacuum attachment. And then we gently slid the thing in, the new element in. We had to push down on that bent sheet metal that we bent down, and it was very difficult to get in, but it was doable. And just be very gentle as you put it back in. Make sure you can vacuum if anything falls in there. Then we wrapped the insulation back up around it after screwing in those 6 screws of the element itself, and then we then wrapped the insulation around, and then we pushed up and screwed those 4 sheet metal screws in on the back cover. And then we reassembled the top unit back down to the bottom unit, which is just the 4 screws between the 2 and then the side screws and the electronics. So we just redid what we took off. So maybe you want to take some pictures yourself. And it went back together fairly easily. And then we put the connectors back on. And if you can see in this picture, the left connector I made a mark on so I know which one went to what. Always use gloves. The sheet metal is extremely sharp, so we always use gloves in dealing with, I can see my son's pushing in the actual new element. We also did the bottom one. So we bought 2 elements because we knew this was going to be a very difficult job. So instead of ever having to do this again, we bought 2 elements. So we did the top one, which was the hard one, put that all back together, and then we did the bottom one, which is basically the same as the top one, and there was nothing blocking it. So it was very difficult to get the elements in and out yet again. Very, very small gap there, but we were finally able to get it back in, doing the same thing we did before. This is for reference what my electrical connection looks like in the back of the unit. And we screwed everything back together, pushed it back in, and it worked. Praise God. We were very, very thankful because this was a terrible job. Sorry that you have to do it if you're watching this, but it is possible, and best wishes to you.